Hi. The knock came like thunder against the wooden door, hard enough to rattle the oil lamp on the mantel. Will Thompson opened it with caution, and there she stood. Lily, his 16-year-old daughter, panting, dirt-streaked, eyes wide with fear. "Papa!" Her voice trembled. "They're coming. They've got guns. And they know about the vault beneath the cypress." From the distance, headlights stabbed through the black Texas night, crawling slow down the dirt road like serpents hunting prey. Will's hand went to the rifle on the wall. Lily clutched the leather-bound journal against her chest, Jude Livingston's journal. The one with the map, the symbols, the key. A secret worth $100 million. Will slammed the door shut, bolted it, then looked at his daughter. "Go to the root cellar. Now." Outside, car doors slammed. Footsteps approached. And somewhere beneath the old cypress tree, something waited. Something men would kill for. Before the knock, before the rifle came down from its hooks, Will Thompson was just a man trying not to disappear. He had once been a farmer in Oklahoma. Proud, steady, rooted in the land like the wheat he grew. He had a wife, Ellen, and a daughter, Lily. There were quiet joys, harvests, birthday pies, evenings filled with stories and music. But all of that faded after the droughts came and Ellen's lungs gave out in the winter cold. She died wrapped in quilts, her hand in his, whispering Lily's name. Will buried her under the elm behind the barn. After that, he stopped planting, stopped smiling. Grief didn't shout in his life. It simply removed all the color. Lily was 12 then. She kept him going in small, persistent ways, reading aloud when he wouldn't speak, drawing wildflowers in her notebook, lighting a candle by her mother's grave. But Will drifted. The land turned to dust. The bank came knocking. Then a letter arrived. No return address. Just his name, written in the same careful script his mother used in church. Inside was a deed to a ranch in Texas. A hand-drawn map. A note. "Will, we share blood. This land is yours now. Trust the tree. Jude Livingston." He didn't know the name, but he knew debt, knew foreclosure, knew that staying would mean losing Lily next. So they left. The ranch was little more than a crumbling house and a barn half swallowed by weeds. No one had lived there in years. But Lily's eyes lit up when she saw it. She called it a story waiting to be written. She explored everything. And in the attic, she found a photograph. Two men standing beside a massive cypress. One was labeled Jude. The other? The resemblance to Will was uncanny. Perfect match decades apart. She found symbols carved in the bark of that same cypress. Circles, lines, stars, and old language. The journal left behind by Jude was filled with sketches, coordinates, and coded entries. Lily believed it meant something. She believed this place had purpose. Will wasn't sure what he believed, until the night she ran through the door, breathless. "Papa! They're coming." Now he held the rifle again. And for the first time in years, he remembered what it felt like to protect something worth dying for. It wasn't a stranger who needed help this time. It was his daughter. Lily had always been quiet. Sharp-eyed, thoughtful, full of questions she rarely spoke aloud. Since Ellen died, she'd drawn inward even more, carrying her sorrow the way some men carried rifles. Close, silent, heavy. Will saw it every day. She cooked, cleaned, and studied without complaint. But her laughter had vanished. Her light dimmed, until Jude's journal. She found it hidden in a false compartment beneath the hearth. An old, leather-bound volume tied shut with a green ribbon. Inside were sketches, maps, symbols, and notes written in tight cursive. Most would have passed it off as the ramblings of an old man. But Lily saw something else. She read it cover to cover in days. Then again. Then again. "Papa," she said one evening, spreading the journal open on the table. "This isn't just a diary. It's a code. A record." "A record of what?" Will asked, not looking up from the kindling he was stacking. "Of a vault. And a key. And something big. Jude talks about a collection buried beneath the cypress. He says it's meant for his bloodline. For us." Will sighed. "Lily, I'm serious," she said, pressing a page flat with her palm. "Look." He calls himself a keeper. Says it's not about gold. It's about history. Truth. Truth. That word echoed in Will's head long after the fire burned low. He didn't dismiss her. Not entirely. But he didn't believe either. His life had been full of dirt, debt, and death. Truth didn't come buried in boxes. It came in unpaid bills and empty fields. But Lily kept going. She cross-referenced Jude's drawings with the land itself. She found carvings on the old cypress tree, symbols etched into the bark like a forgotten language. She matched them to diagrams in the journal, then to a hand-drawn map hidden between the pages. "Here," she said one morning, pointing. "This is where we dig." Will humored her, until she came running through the door 2 days later, her hands covered in soil, eyes wide. "Papa," she gasped, "I found it." Behind the cypress, beneath 2 feet of earth, they uncovered a wooden box bound in iron and sealed with 3 interlocking rings. The same rings etched into the journal's cover. Together, they pried it open. Inside wasn't treasure. It was paper, ledgers, letters, folded documents stamped with strange insignias, and one iron key. The teeth were jagged, shaped like stars and triangles. Lily trembled as she picked up the top page. "These are records of land, of rail contracts. Look, this page lists military shipments from 1866. And these names, Papa, these are Texas officials." Will flipped through another. Land deeds transferred under false signatures, trails of money flowing to private accounts. "This is what Jude was hiding," Lily whispered. "This is what they'll come for." Will wasn't ready to believe that, until the car arrived. It came just past noon, trailing dust on a road no one used. A black sedan, polished, silent, out of place. A man stepped out in a clean suit and smiled like he already owned the place. "Mr. Thompson," he said, extending a hand. "Norman Grace. I represent a land trust interested in your property." Will didn't shake. Grace handed him a check. $40,000. "We understand your situation," Grace said smoothly. "We'd like to take this land off your hands." Quietly, Will looked at the check, then at the man. "What's under this land?" Grace's smile didn't falter. "Just soil, sir. And potential. But if you're asking whether someone would come looking for something, well, we'd rather resolve that now, wouldn't we?" Will tore the check in two. Grace didn't blink. "You've got until tomorrow to reconsider. After that, we won't be talking." He left without another word. Will stood in the dust, heart pounding. When he walked back inside, Lily was already at the table, her eyes locked on the journal. "He came?" she asked. Will nodded. "They know," she whispered. "They know what's here." He sat beside her and took the journal into his hands for the first time. Not to humor her, but to understand. "I need you to tell me everything," he said. And for the first time in years, Lily looked at her father not as someone fading into the past, but as someone finally standing up in the present. The wind shifted just before sunrise. Will Thompson sat on the porch, rifle across his knees, watching the cypress sway in the distance like it was trying to warn him. The night had passed without sleep. He'd spent it going over every word in Jude's journal, every symbol Lily had translated, every page of ledgers they'd found buried under the roots. He understood now. It wasn't gold these men were after. It wasn't even about the land. It was what Jude had hidden beneath it. Documents that proved corruption, lies, theft spanning generations. Proof of who really owned what, who profited from what, and who had buried the truth so deep they thought no one would ever find it. But Lily had, and that meant the storm was already here. By the time the sun burned away the morning mist, Will had hidden the journal beneath the hearth, nailed shut the floorboard, and looped the iron key onto a rawhide cord. He gave it to Lily and looked her in the eye. "No matter what happens," he said, "don't give this up. Not for me. Not for anyone." She nodded once, pressing the key to her chest. They heard the engines before they saw them. 3 black SUVs rolled down the dirt road like vultures gliding in. They came slow, deliberate. The tires crackled over gravel. Dust rose behind them like smoke from something already burned. 6 men stepped out, dressed in tactical gear, armed. Then came Norman Grace, calm as a Sunday preacher, wearing a crisp tan suit and a smile that had no warmth behind it. "Mr. Thompson," Grace called out, "we're here for the last time. We don't intend to leave empty-handed." Will stepped off the porch, rifle in hand, but pointed low. "Then you came for the wrong thing." Grace spread his arms like a man offering mercy. "It's simple. You hand over the key and the journal and no one gets hurt. You keep the house, the horses. Even the girl walks free. That's our deal." Will didn't speak. He looked past Grace at the men spreading across his land. Two were already moving toward the cypress tree with shovels. "You need to call them back," Will said. Grace's voice cooled. "This doesn't concern you anymore." Will raised the rifle not to fire, but to show intent. "It does. Because you're standing on ground you don't understand." One of Grace's men put a hand on his weapon. Lily appeared at the doorway, holding Jude's journal tight against her chest. Grace saw her and sighed. "You let a child play with fire, Mr. Thompson. That was your first mistake." "She's not a child," Will said. "She's the reason this truth still exists." Grace's tone darkened. "We've been trying to buy this land for years. Jude wouldn't sell. Now he's gone, and this burden passes to you. But we're not interested in waiting anymore." "You're not buying truth," Will said. "You're burying it." Grace stepped forward. "Do you have any idea what happens if those documents see the light of day? Do you understand the chaos they would cause?" "I understand it's not yours to control." Grace raised a hand. "Take the journal." One of his men stepped toward Lily. She backed into the house, clutching the book. Will took a step forward, finger tightening on the trigger. "That's far enough," he warned. The man froze. Everything hung in the air. Silence, tension, dust. Then came the sound no one expected. Hoofbeats. From over the ridge came riders. First 3, then 10, then more. Dozens. Their coats flapped like banners. Their rifles glinted in the light. Dust rose behind them like thunderclouds rolling in. Private marshals. Hired by Jude years ago. Loyal to blood. Loyal to truth. They didn't speak as they surrounded the SUVs. Their leader dismounted and approached Will with calm eyes and a folded letter in his hand. "You Will Thompson?" he asked. "I am." He handed over the envelope. "Jude Livingston left this for you. Said if it ever came to this, you'd know what to do." Will opened it. Inside was a single sentence. "If you're reading this, it means you chose truth over fear. Now protect it with everything you are." Will tucked the letter into his coat and looked back at Grace. The marshals moved swiftly. They disarmed the intruders, zip-tied their hands, loaded them into the same SUVs they came in. Grace didn't resist, but his eyes stayed locked on Will. "This isn't over," he said. Will stepped closer. "Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet." Within minutes, the ranch was quiet again. Will stood at the edge of the porch as the last SUV disappeared down the road. Lily walked to his side, still holding the journal. Her hands trembled. "Papa," she said softly, "what if they come back?" He looked at her. The same fierce eyes Ellen once had, the same fire that had brought him back to life. "Then we'll be ready," he said. "But next time we won't stand alone." Lily reached into her coat and handed him something. Jude's final letter. Will opened it with care. "You were never meant to guard this alone. The collection was never about wealth, it was about witness. If you're reading this, Will, it means you stepped forward. You chose courage over comfort. That's the legacy I leave you. Not money, not land, but the right to protect the truth." Will folded the letter, pressed it to his heart, and exhaled. For the first time in a long while, the wind felt like it carried purpose. The marshals stayed for 2 days. They checked the tree line, took statements, documented everything. They guarded the vault site and cataloged the contents of the ledgers Lily had uncovered. They promised continued watch, continued loyalty. But Will Thompson knew what men like Norman Grace represented. They weren't just thieves. They were a system, a shadow older than any deed. They didn't act alone. They were backed by something larger. And 2 days wasn't long enough to outrun that. By the end of the week, Will saw signs. Distant figures on ridges that vanished when he raised his scope. Tire tracks in the dirt that weren't from any of his wagons. A letter without a postmark left on the porch. You made your choice. We're making ours. Lily tried to act brave, but her hands shook when she poured coffee. She kept the journal beside her at all times, even when she slept. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, Will would hear her whispering to herself, repeating coordinates, numbers, names, as if keeping them alive in her mind could protect them in the world. And then the fire came. It started at the north pasture. Flames leapt out of nowhere, too sudden for lightning, too clean to be accidental. The wind carried sparks toward the barn before Will and Lily could even grab buckets. By the time they contained it, the old tack shed was gone. The fence line scorched black. A message. Nothing more. Nothing less. 2 nights later, the well was poisoned. Something slick in the water. The horses wouldn't drink. Will tasted it and spit blood for hours. They were being hunted. But what chilled him more than the sabotage was the silence. There were no more demands. No men in suits. No offers of money. Only distance and shadows. It meant one thing. Whoever had backed Grace had decided negotiation was done. What they couldn't buy, they would erase. And that meant the vault wasn't just valuable. It was dangerous. Will and Lily moved the ledgers. Page by page, night after night. They hid them in hollowed beams, buried them beneath the chicken coop, stored microfilm copies in oilskin sacks under the cellar. They wrote down passwords, created decoys, burned false maps in the fireplace in case anyone searched the house. Will dug out his father's revolver from the barn floor and cleaned it beside the lamp while Lily reread Jude's last entries. They'll come in the night, when the world's quiet, when you least expect it. They don't need to win by force, just by fear. But if you're still standing by morning, they lose. Will thought of that line every time he walked the property. They weren't just protecting papers now. They were guarding something deeper. Memory. Proof. A chance for history to look itself in the eye. And then, on a gray afternoon that smelled like storm, Lily found the second vault. It was Jude's final secret. She'd followed an odd passage in the journal, half a poem, half a cipher. It spoke of a twin root split, shadow facing east. She wandered the edge of the forest behind the pasture, tracing every tree with her fingers until she found the spot. 2 cypresses twisted together, one bearing Jude's symbol, the other split open by age. Inside the hollow trunk was a steel box, wrapped in waxed cloth. Inside that box, letters, dozens of them, from senators, generals, bank presidents, all addressed to Jude, all referencing payments, land transfers, witness suppression. Lily brought it back to the house, white-faced. This isn't just history, she said. It's evidence. We'll read one letter twice. A typed sheet dated 1951. Jude, destroy what you have. If this ever gets out, it won't just ruin legacies. It will break counties. You're not protecting the past anymore. You're arming the future. That makes you dangerous. And below it, in Jude's handwriting, dangerous men don't bury the truth. They build with it. Will sat back in his chair, heart pounding. They weren't hiding treasure. They were holding a match to everything men like Grace had built their power upon. That night, Will rode to town alone. Marlin Creek was quiet. The sheriff met him on the porch. You know they've been watching, the sheriff said. I do. You know what you've got could burn half the state. I know that too. The sheriff looked down at his boots. Then why not give it up? Will didn't blink. Because my daughter still believes in what's right. And if I can't protect that, then I'm already dead. The sheriff nodded once. I'll send help when I can. But don't count on miracles. I'm not, Will said. I'm counting on fire lines. When he returned home, Lily had packed a satchel with half the letters, some ledgers, and the microfilm. I've been thinking, she said. If something happens to us, this has to go somewhere safe. He looked at her, at the fear in her, the weight she carried, the will beneath it. You're not leaving, he said. Then we send it, she replied. Divide it, scatter it, So even if they take one piece, they can't bury the whole thing. So they did. By morning, 5 couriers left town with sealed parcels marked for distant places. Universities, journalists, churches. No return addresses. Only Jude's symbol etched on the outside. That night, headlights returned. No SUVs. No suits. Just a truck. Old. Silent. And from it stepped a woman in a long coat, gloves, and a hat pulled low. She didn't speak until she reached the porch. "I'm not here to threaten," she said. "I'm here to end this." Will stepped outside. "Who are you?" "A cleaner," she said. "The kind they send when money fails." Lily stood behind the door with her fingers curled around the rifle. "You can try," Will said. "I won't need to," the woman replied, "because you've already sent it. The damage is done. I'm not here to stop it. I'm here to keep the blood from spilling when it lands." Will frowned. "Then what do you want?" She reached into her coat and pulled out a key identical to the one Lily wore. "I worked for Jude once," she said. "Long before Grace ever came sniffing. He trusted me. Said if things ever got bad enough, I should make sure the truth wasn't just protected, but seen." She handed Will a card. "A name, place, a date. They'll all be there," she said. "Archivists, historians, survivors, people still brave enough to listen." Will took the card and looked up. "Why are you helping now?" She didn't smile. "Because I buried my father with lies. And I swore I'd never let another family do the same." She turned, walked back to the truck, and vanished into the dust. Will stood on the porch long after she left. Behind him, Lily placed a hand on his shoulder. "What happens now?" she asked. He looked toward the horizon. "Now," he said, "we show the world what men tried to hide." The night was quiet, too quiet. Will crouched behind the barn, rifle ready. Lily waited in the cellar, journal and letters packed. The iron key beneath her shirt. They'd prepared for this. But preparation didn't soften the fear. Then they came. 3 figures. No headlights. No sound but footsteps on dry soil. They moved toward the cypress with quiet precision. One knelt, began digging. Will clicked the safety off. But before he could step forward, he heard something else. Distant hooves. He turned toward the ridge. Riders. 7 of them, dark silhouettes cutting through the night. Jude's men. Private marshals, returning uncalled, yet right on time. They swept down the hill, surrounding the intruders before a word was spoken. One of the diggers stood, panicked, reaching for his hip. A rifle cracked. Dust sprayed at his feet. He froze. The lead marshal raised his voice. "You're trespassing. Stand down." They did. From the cellar, Lily emerged. Bag over her shoulder, shoulders squared. She approached the marshals, removed the journal, and handed it to their leader. "Take it," she said. "It's time the truth lived somewhere safe." He nodded, respectful. "We'll see it through." Will joined her. He didn't speak, just placed a hand on her back. Then headlights appeared. A black car stopped at the gate. Norman Grace stepped out alone, arms raised. "It's over," he said. Will didn't reply. Lily did. "Yes, and you lost." Grace looked at her, cold. "You think exposing this will fix the world?" "No," she said. "But hiding it broke it." He didn't argue. By morning, the marshals were gone, taking the evidence with them. The tree stood still. The fight was over, for now. But the truth had been passed forward. And Lily, she had become what Jude had written about. A keeper. 6 months later, the world had changed. The ranch in Texas was sold, quietly, legally. The profits from the trust Jude had left, now released, bought new beginnings. Montana greeted them with snow-fed streams, wide skies, and hills that rolled like oceans frozen in time. Will and Lily settled on 3,000 acres of green pasture and cedar windbreaks. The farmhouse was old, but clean. The fences strong. The barn wide enough for rescued horses and something softer, peace. Will rose early each day, not from burden, but choice. He mended gates, checked the stock, watched frost melt from fence posts in the morning light. His hands still bore the scars of the life before, but now they held purpose again. Lily had built something too. She taught reading and arithmetic to children from the valley, ranch kids and reservation kids alike. Twice a week, she held lessons under the cottonwood tree near the creek. Her students came barefoot, eager, curious. And she never taught just numbers. She taught them to question, to trace the truth, to write it down before someone else tried to erase it. In the evenings, the house filled with light, lamplight, firelight, laughter. They kept only part of the collection, enough to honor Jude's intent. The rest had been given to journalists, archivists, and universities, quietly but firmly. Some names were cleared, others disgraced. Towns were shaken, but not broken. And still, Lily kept the journal. Not because she needed it, but because it had brought her to this life. Sometimes, Will would find her reading it at dusk, tracing the edges of Jude's maps not with the hunger of a girl chasing treasure, but with the calm of someone remembering a journey already made. They'd paid every debt, helped neighbors rebuild barns, planted fruit trees along the road, opened a small animal rescue on the side of the property. They hadn't bought peace. They'd earned it. One late afternoon, as gold spilled over the hills, Lily walked up the porch steps, wiping dust from her palms. She stood beside Will, who was watching a pair of fawns near the orchard fence. "Papa," she said, "do you think Mama would be proud of us?" Will didn't answer right away. He looked out at the pasture, at the mountains beyond, the open sky, the world they'd been given not through luck, but through choice. Then he looked at her. "She wouldn't just be proud," he said softly. "She'd be at peace." Lily leaned her head on his shoulder. "And Jude," Will smiled. "He planned this for us. Every step, every fight. Not so we'd have wealth, but so we'd be free." They stood together as the sun dipped low, and the wind carried no fear, only the scent of pine and hay. The past hadn't vanished, but it no longer hunted them. Now it grew beside them, rooted deep, rising toward light. "Bye-bye,"